Hi everyone, Zach here, and welcome to lesson 49 in this series on developing a survival game. In this video, we will look at an additional or alternative method, depending on how you want to approach this, to setting up our landscape foliage. We will look at using our foliage paint mode with the use of our landscape actor type. The reason we updated to 4.23 for this subsection was so that we can get access to the landscape actor type. So if you have not updated your engine, you will not be able to do this video. As prior to 4.23, there's only landscape foliage type, which only worked with static meshes. As of 4.23 onwards, there was the landscape actor type, allowing you to use the foliage mode to add actors to a map. So we'll look at this in today's video. This video and this series have been brought to you by my Patreon sponsors, and all of that said, open up your project and let's get started. Hi everyone, and welcome back to the editor. So if we go to our actors again and go to spawner, I'm not sure we have direct access to it. No, we don't. What we do have to do to get this to show up is go to settings and go to edit, go to editor preferences and search for foliage. And we want the procedural foliage checkbox marked. This is apparently experimental, but I've not run into issues with it. To be clear on this though, you don't need to restart your engine. You automatically have access to it now. So there it is, our procedural foliage spawner. And it updates this procedural foliage actor. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a bunch of procedural foliage actors. So let's just do our first one. And we're going to say where we want to save it. And I'm going to go to survival game, core, actor, spawner. And I'm going to name this my procedural, or my AFT for actor foliage type, and I'm going to do tree 01, and I'm going to pop this open. Here we go, and we have BP tree 01. Now what we're going to do at this stage is just create a bunch of these foliage actor types, and again, what we're going to do is then see how we can use it in our world. Now, as we do this, something to be mindful of for our procedural generation is that collision scales with age. So as the tree gets bigger, the collision radius gets bigger. All right, I'm just going to bring this tree up here, and I'm going to go to an orthographic view. And I'm going to approximate the center point here and draw out. That's about 50 units. That's about 55. So we'll go with about 55 for our collision radius. For our canopy, again approximating center point and going to this far out shade here, we're about 305. Likewise, I'm actually going to start at the end of the shade here and move to the center. About 400 for that one, actually. Okay, so we'll go with 400 on our shade there. If I want to be a little bit more specific, what I could do is I could go to a top-down view, and this is really hard to see on this, so I'm going to actually switch this to lit again, and I'm going to hit F. Ledge of the tree is somewhere in here. I can't actually see it, so I'm going to just bring it off the edge of the map here. I'm going to hide the plane of water for a moment. Go back to wireframe. No, I actually can't see it too well. Interesting. So we will use the number I got there. If you can get a top view, then that's even better. Okay, So with that done, what we're going to do is we are going to just start our other settings for this now. And again, you can do some experimentation to see what settings you think work best. I am going to limit the angle at which it can grow from 0 to 35 degrees. I'm not going to worry about anything else. I'm going to say it can only spawn on our grass. I will leave the seed density as is for now. We'll actually look at that in just a moment. It will cast shadows. And you know what? I'm going to do movable on this, because we are going to use this to affect the lighting. All right, let me just leave that tree there for a little bit and also go back to our perspective view. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my actors, my spawner, and I'm going to right click, and I am going to, actually, first thing I'm going to do is show you how you can use this in our world. I'm going to hit that check mark there, and I'm going to try to paint right here on the, okay. Give me 1 second. That actually should not be painting there. Oh, I forgot to put grass in. Make sure that you put your type in. Now let's try it. And notice now I can't paint there. I'm trying really hard, but it's not working. But if I go up here onto the grass, hey, I can paint. I'm gonna change the slope angle at which it's allowed to grow. Make this maybe a bit more shallow. Let's say 15 degrees. There we go. Now I can't paint on those long slopes, but I can paint here. As you can see, I'm still holding the mouse button down as I move, but it's limited where I can paint it too. All right. You'll also notice that we have some different things here that we didn't have in this window. And that's just down here, if it will let me do what I want it to do, which is we have our density, so how much we want in an area, the radius we're allowing, and scaling. We could do different locks that we haven't looked at before, so we have free. And let's say we want our scaling to go from 0.75 to 1.2, 0.75 to 1.2, and then 0.75 to 1.5 we can. Now I would recommend for our trees not using free. I would actually lock X and Y. And now when we paint, we get a little bit of variety in the scale of our trees. Let me get rid of them. Do not know how I got a tree all the way over there. Cool. That's the one over in the distance is the one I placed for measurement reasons. And you can check if you have any trees left by pulling down here and seeing that's set to 0. So we can also change things, that's set in the other stuff. We can also change things like how much the tree rotates. So we can change our rotations, but we've already looked at that. So go ahead and create a whole bunch of these for our different trees and do the same measurements I've done. We'll come back in a few minutes because I've spent like 20 minutes already just rambling at you about different settings, and we'll take a look at what we can do. All right, so I have played with my settings, and my first tree you've seen me do. The second tree, everything remains the same except for my collision radius is 30 and 550 for shadow. For tree 3, it's 490 or 900. And that's the one with the really weird branch out here. I know that there's some weird collision stuff around this branch, so I've done my collision from the branch to the center, just to make my life easier. You don't have to. And then I've done 85 to 375 for tree 3. Go ahead and sort of repeat this for the herbs as well. So for the herbs, I'm just going to cheat actually and go into our foliage placement, great new foliage type. Of type actor, and I'm just going to go into our core, actor, spawner, and our AFT, actor foliage type, herb, small, 01. So we're going to have a lot of the ones for the herb. I actually do recommend using the random ones for the herbs, just because It's procedural, and it makes it a little bit easier. The more procedural actor types you have, actually, before I create this, I want to talk about something I mentioned earlier on. This collision thing, this overlap priority, is extremely powerful. And it can lead to a lot of issues. So I do recommend only using this only using as few as possible. So in fact, actually, what we might want to do is do our trees as a random one too. So I'm going to do the herbs based on the randomizers we have. So just because otherwise it's going to get really dense and really in terms of the number of actors we're using and how they work and all the settings and all the calculations the engine has to do, and it can cause problems. Oh dear God, can it cause problems. So we're going to do AFT Herb Small, not going to do 01. I'm just going to pop this open, and in this, all I'm going to do is find my BP Herb Small Random, and I am going to not align to there, to normal. I am going to do random yaw. I am going to give a pitch angle of 30. I am going to leave this in that setting. I am going to definitely make sure to add in grass this time. And it's a bit high, but that works for now. I'm going to turn off cast shadows because I do not want it to cast shadows. It is static. And I think that's everything this one needs. So I'm just going to go ahead and save this one out. And I'm going to just duplicate this one. So actually do all the other ones. This will be Herb Medium. And let's just pop it open. Make sure to change this to BP Herb Medium Random. Again, all that's going to stay the same. I actually am going to align this one to normal. I am going to allow random yaw. It's going to be on grass. We'll leave all these settings the same. Everything else remains the same. Go ahead and save that. And finally, let's duplicate Herb Medium. We're going to have Herb Large. And we're going to create one more after this, by the way. And that will be for the tree random. And this will be BP Herb _ Herb Large. I mean, yeah, it's 01. We don't have a randomizer for this one. So, makes it a little bit easier. We are going to get rid of that. We are going to change this to 10 degrees, so it only is growing on typically more flat surface. Again, everything else remains the same. Go ahead and save that. And then I'm going to just, I'll get rid of all of this. Like, I don't want these on here anymore. I'm just going to save this real quick. And then I'm going to create one more. And just to be a bit cheeky, I'm going to duplicate tree 01 here. And this will be tree random. There we go. And in tree random, we will just do our BP tree random. I'm going to up this to 20 just because. Everything else remains 0. That remains grass. I'm going to up this to 100 and so we'll up this to 150 and we'll up this to 250. Now, the problem with the trees and why I have them separate is they do have different radiuses and different spawn shade amounts. So I'm kind of concerned about that. Everything else, again, is going to remain the same. So we now have set up our foliage generators. So I'm just going to go back to my main view here. I'm going to delete all these trees. Boom. Okay, let me turn the water plane back on, and let me come back over to the island. So what we can do now is, after we save everything, and after I panic that the grass is, I'm way too far out to see the grass. There we go. Again, we'll take care of the load order on this in a bit. We can go in here, and we can start painting our island. So one thing I want to point out, I'm just going to start with the tree random here real quick. I'm going to make sure it's selected. With it selected, I am going to, again, make sure that hey, all my tree random settings are still stored there. Cool. I'm just double checking all my other settings as well match along to what I want to do with this. We want it movable. Yep. Okay. So one thing I want to point out to you, and this is really kind of trippy to notice, I think. And okay, where are the trees? There are these little collision boxes. Well, let's just do a select all, and I'm going to just do was spawned. Boom, was spawned, and there we get random. Of course, now you might notice something is going on that's a bit interesting here. They're all at kind of weird angles. Why is that? Well, they're aligned to normal. So if we go back here and align to normal, and then let's do was spawned. Actually, let's paint this in again, just to show you what. Let's repaint it. Sorry. So we're gonna look for the reapply settings to instances, and we're just gonna run that through. Really, it's not doing much of a change there, so we're just gonna paint some more on here. And then we're gonna do a lasso select all. There we go. You know, so these ones are a little bit more upright. They feel a little less random. We might want to control how much they are being adjusted on that angle. So I'm very quickly going to just go back to the paint mode, hold my shift key down, and start unpainting these. Getting rid of these happy little mistakes. So we'll just turn on align to normal again, and we're going to set the max angle, say, to 15 degrees. And let's come in here, and again, we have this weirdness where it's not showing up. And that's due to the fact that we are randomizing what material there is. So we need to run the construction script. And there we go. We have a little bit more control. Now, that's one way we can do this. The other way we can go about doing this is with our procedural generator. And we'll talk about that probably in the next video, because I've been doing this for 29 minutes. And you're probably going, we haven't done anything really important here. That's true. We really haven't done anything that we can see for the end of our, we haven't seen for the end of our system. So what we're going to do is, well, we're going to start painting our island a little bit here. So we can move all of these in there, and we can take a look at all their different effects. And in fact, what we're going to do is we are going to move, we're going to delete the procedural generators we've created already, just so we have a clean sort of blank slate to work from. And then we're going to go into, I don't like what I do with the grass there anymore. Sorry for that side comment. We're going to go back into our foliage mode. And in foliage mode, we're actually going to start with our herbs, just because I think it's probably a little bit easier to have those up top. So I'll start with my herb large. Then I will do my herb medium, my herb small, and then we'll do, say, our trees. Now, here's the question. Which order do we want to do the trees in? Do we want to use the randomizer or one of these things? I'm going to use these four. Now, here's the thing. What are we looking at when we look at this? Also, why did those all just become active right away? They should be inactive. Well, what are these little circles? They're actors, right? But which is which? So we can change our view, and I think this view is better. So we have our count. If we make changes to the settings, we can see what needs to be saved. We can also see that down there. I'm just going to Control S, save everything real quick. You notice those will fade away. But this gives us a bit more ability to see what's going on. So I am going to select tree 01. I'm actually going to select it again. I'm going to go in here, and I am going to set the, actually I'm going to go through all the trees real quick and set the max angle to 10 on that, because it is bugging me how those came out. Now we haven't really looked at these settings down here yet. That we'll look at in the next video. All right, Control S, save. And now I'm going to select all these trees. And I'm going to paint around the edges of the island. So if I just go through here, and I think those are too clustered together, to be fair. So what we're going to do is undo that, and we're going to change our brush density. First, I'm going to change my brush size to 150, and I'm going to do, let's just raise that to 1 for a moment, see what that looks like. That is way too much in one area. To show you, I'm going to change this to, say, 0.25. And it's a little still too dense. In fact, I'm also going to raise this to 220. Yeah, 220. And we're just going to lower that a bit. There we go. And so we can start painting around the edge of the island. I'm not a fan of how my trees ended up there. There we go. And you notice we're getting variation on size and type of tree, so that we're giving our island a bit of character. Like I said, I'm just going to really worry about the edges of the island. And notice I can't paint down there because the angle is too steep. Get a couple of trees there. I don't mind that there are 2 right there. But I'm just going to go through and worry about all that little edge stuff right along here. You can have some spots that are a little bit more dense, some spots that are a little less dense. But again, I'm just worrying about the edges because I'm going to use procedural generators in the center. So you might be wondering, how do you know which tool to use, when to use it? Well, we have multiple tools. It isn't one size fits all. You use the tool appropriate for what you want to do. I'm going to use procedural generators, and I'm going to use both of our procedural generators, one we haven't looked at and the one we've created, to be able to do different things. And I'll be using one for difficulty settings, the one we've created, because we're going to add some stuff to it down the road. I'm going to be using the other one just to fill in spots on the island where I think there should be trees. I'll also be doing hand placing. I will be doing hand placing when I want to do a tree on one of these steep slopes, so that I can control how it looks and how it feels. So again, we're just coming through and doing the edges of our island, and we should end up with a nice, man, I really made that angle too shallow, but whatever. Again, I'll hand place where I want the ones for the non-shallow angle placements. So just go through and paint how you want to paint the island, or whatever map you're using. Turn this into your own world. Express yourself and the story you want to tell, and how difficult you might want to make that world for the player in the ways that you see fit. By the way, if you haven't worked out, this is where the thumbnail comes from. It's actually from right after this video and the original recording. So this entire system we're doing is what allowed me to make that thumbnail. Actually, I think I waited till I did the lighting part of this, then I did the thumbnail. So it's a few more videos is from where we actually get the real thumbnail. Yeah, because I'm looking at the thumbnail now. The water is the better color, and the lighting is what allows us to do that coloring. So we use lighting effects really nicely to fill in some of the stuff. So one thing to be mindful of is how close they are together, because I mean that's going to create some really dense shadowing. Of course, we have set them to movable for a reason on lighting, and that's because we're going to have a dynamic lighting system, not in this section, but in the next section when we start working on our weather. So just be mindful of how densely packed these are together in some areas, and what that can mean for the player. We do have a flashlight for the player, remember, so there is a little bit of wiggle room on what you can do. That's because I put this angle too steep. I am going to get rid of that one. There we go. Or too shallow, put the angle too shallow. The island's too steep there for what I'm trying to paint on. But now that we are starting to get some character to the island, hopefully things are starting to come together and feel a bit more immersive in our game world. Hopefully you're starting to see where this is heading and how this is going to feel for the player. Again, I do recommend exploring every inch of this island by walking through it or flying over it. I have gotten to know this island very well just by running over this island looking for cracks over and over again in the tessellation. So there are things you can do to, by the way, it's not painting there because it's too steep, to, you know, learn this island. Just see what it feels like. Think about it from the player's point of view. I know I'm going to want some there. I might hand place those. But again, we're starting to get that feel for our island now. And we can go through and do the same for our herbs. So I'm just going to very quickly pause the recording and then come back and show you what I've done with the herbs, because it's 37 minutes in the recording unedited version of this. I know I'm going to be editing some minutes out, but still. Okay, as you can see, we're beginning to break up our landscape some. You know, we have our foliage. I did make some changes to the settings, and I'll show you those real quick. Again, I only painted along the edges and then some other random spots. But we can see that we can now pick up our herb. I've been picking up a lot, by the way. I am a bit concerned that it's not allowing me to eat it, though. So let me take a quick look and then work out what's going on there. But before I do so, the settings I have done, if we go back to our foliage mode here and select our herb, is I've changed the density to 2000, the radius to 250, and I've locked the X and Y and set our values to 0.85 to 1.5 in all areas. Give me 1 second to work out what's going on with the herb. So the error was really kind of one of my usual ones. I forgot to set the herb small random class there. So that should now resolve the issue. It actually makes me wonder why the meshes are responding improperly. They shouldn't have been, but okay. I'm gonna just right click play from here so I don't have to worry about going up the hill. Grab that sugary herb and just wait a moment for my hunger to decrease so I can see that it's working. All right, there we go. It's decreased a little bit. And eat, eat, eat. What I'm concerned by is that wasn't triggering. Eat, there we go. So we now know it's working. I don't need to follow it through, it wasn't triggering earlier. I'm gonna do the same for my medium herb here, but I'm gonna put a lot less of it in. I'm also gonna turn off the small herb. And any setting changes I have for this, well, let's talk about what they're gonna be. It's going to just be, well, very similar to our, actually the small herb, and you can go back and reapply, it should be 0.5, I think. For the medium, we should also lock X and Y. We'll set this to 0.85 by 1.5 by 0.85 by 1.5. This one we'll do as 0.75 to 1.5. For the density on these, what we'll do is, well, the default. And I'm just going to very quickly check that I've set this one to have the correct, yeah, I have, it's herb medium, cool. And I'm going to go through and just simply paint this in some select areas. So I'm choosing where I want the medium ones to show up. I'm not just going to go onto the edges. I'm going to paint particular areas near the trees. And I'm going to avoid some very steep angles. And just again, you can choose where you want to put stuff. And I actually do want a little bit more over here. Going to be a little bit dense there. And same with over here. So it's up to you on how you want these things to show up and how you want your world to feel. So go ahead and do that. I'll be back when I finish mine out. Alright, I have placed my medium, so now I'm going to do my large. I'm going to set my radius to 750, and I'm going to do uniform for this one, and my min will be 0.75 to 1.2. As for everything else, it will remain the same, except for I am looking at the wrong thing, so I'm undoing everything I just did. I'm going to select the correct one, so that's 750, 0.75, 1.2, and I'm going to go ahead and place these more sporadically, or not sporadically, but more conservatively. So I'm going to place them along particular edges on the outside of the island. And with that done, I will show you the final result. Alright, our island is, well, slightly populated with foliage now. So if I hit play and go up the slope, we can see one herb right there, which is at a really bad angle for the collision box. We have another there. And if I keep going up, I know there should be some... there it is. You can see the yellow breaking up the landscape a bit. And we have our various items that we can eat and have effects from. So we are now creating our environment. I am a bit concerned by the trees, just a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to eject for a moment. I'm going to select this tree. Nope. I'm going to find another tree. I want a big one. I'm not seeming to find any ones that are massively big, but that could be due to the scale settings we've used. So it looks like the trees that we spawned in are all around... yeah, they're not getting too much bigger. And that is going to lead to the number of wood these trees have being all fairly uniform. So if you do want to have a bit more variety, I would, in terms of the resource amount, I would say, you know, maybe up the scale to 2. Select your trees. Go to reapply. Select your updated scale settings, which are somewhere in here. This is just tree 1. Sorry, I'm an idiot. It's right under here. If we open up scaling and select that, we can come back in and say, just reapply. If it will let me. You know, those are all different trees. So what we want to do is go back actually and do this for all our trees. So I'm going to just select this, go to 2. Select this, go to 2, and select this and go to 2. Then go to my reapply settings and select all of these. Mark those all as true and mark those all for that. And then we can start reapplying and changing our trees just a bit so we have a little bit more variety in our trees. I think I just put a new tree in now, unfortunately. No, I didn't. I'm an idiot. I'm in the reapply setting. I can't put new trees in. So we are getting some more variety, just breaking up the island a bit more, giving it a little bit more character. We're hiding the tiling a bit more on the grass, and we're using our trees to just change up the environment a bit more. All right. That said, that takes us through what we need to do in today's video. So we should have just around a few hundred trees, a lot of the small herbs, several thousand, but this takes us through what we need to do. This video and this series have been brought to you by Patreon sponsors like Rian, Hanas, Quad Menson, Connor, 1Volt10, and Galwa. If you've enjoyed setting up your island and getting one of the other procedural foliage generators working, or actually the landscape painter working, we haven't done procedural generation in this video, we did it in the last video, then make sure to hit that like button down below. If you feel like this island's coming together and you're really happy with it and you want to do more, make sure to hit the subscribe and notify icon so you know when the next video is out. All of that said, I look forward to seeing you in the next tutorial, and I hope that you have a wonderful day.